I'm feeling lost and I have nowhere else to go now. I don't really have a place to call my home now. Everybody hating on, I feel so cold now. Why do everybody make me feel alone? Like I'm feeling lost and I have nowhere else to go now. I don't really have a place to call my home.
But then a man came out, wore a big black coat with a red cloud, cried. And he looking for Sensei. Sakura yelled. Naruto sighed before patting her head and telling to sit down. He started to use medical ninjutsu on the girls to stop the bleeding. He started to wrap the ace wrapped around their arms and legs before asking where your team. They ran off, but me and Sakura got caught, Ino said, holding her shoulder in pain. Naruto sighed. Then I'm going to train you too, okay? Naruto asked. Hi, Night Fox Sensei. They both said. Naruto beamed. Kushina sighed. Minato? She yelled softly. What? Minato asked, sitting down next to her. I need to talk to you, Kushina said in a softer. What is it, honey? Minato asked, holding her hand. I want another child because Naruto hates us and we want a new clan heir. So Kushina sucked her breath. I'm pregnant. Kushina sucked her breath and Minato, I'm pregnant, repeated and finished. We're going to have an heir, Minato smiled and his eyes lit up. But what about Nato? And Minato asked. His happiness died down. I want two heirs, Minato. Kushina spoke strictly. One boy, one girl. She continued. Wait, what about Naruto? Minato asked. He hates us, so what's the point? Kushina asked. True, he doesn't even deserve to be the clan heir. Minato nodded. Well, let's go to the hospital and get the baby gender checked, Minato said. I want a boy, Kushina smiled. Nah, I want a girl, Minato said happily. And then they walked happily to the hospital. Nato walked towards Kakashi's house to ask him if he could train her. After all, it was the weekends, and Night Fox Sensei would never give her the day off unless he really wanted to. Nato knocked on the door and frowned, evidence on her face. He better train me, she mumbled angrily. Nato gasped as she saw a familiar face of Naruto Uzumaki. Brother? Nato snared. Sister. Naruto smirked. Naruto then heard a call from Kakashi. Who's at the door, Naruto? Just spoiled brat, Naruto replied. Kakashi walked up to the door. Naruto was waiting on the door frame. I'm not a brat, Naruto screamed, and stomping her foot. Kakashi sighed as Naruto glared at Naruto. Normally a person wouldn't have screamed therefore you are a brat, Naruto said, reassuring to her. Naruto glared at Naruto before looking over Kakashi. Can you train me? Naruto asked. Hopefully Kakashi would have it if he hadn't known what the Namikaze family had done to Naruto. After all the torture Naruto went through from the family, Kakashi was disappointed in them and said no. Naruto grumbled. Why not? It's because of him, Naruto said, pointing at Naruto angrily. No, he's just staying with me, Kakashi said as he shook his head. Whatever, Night Fox. Should beat you any day. I'll go ask my dad where he lives right now. Naruto smirked before heading down the third path to the Hokage Tower. Naruto broke out into laughter and Kakashi just smiled. Good luck with that. Naruto grumbled as she ignored the dirt going between her sandals, seeing the Hokage Tower. She raced over there and slammed open the door, ignoring the fact that meeting was holding place. Naruto Minato asked, confused, since he had specifically said for no one to bother him during his meetings. Dad, where does Night Fox live? Naruto asked. Sweetie, that's confidential information. I don't care, Nato yelled, angry. Evidence in her voice. Fine, fine. He lives in, Minato said, opening his cabinet and staring at Night Fox files. I don't know, Minato said in shock as he set up papers down. Dad? Nato whined, slamming the door shut. Minato laughed mercilessly in embarrassment and said, sorry about that, sir. The man's just looking confused. Naruto smiled under her mask, and his main excellent students, Ino and Sakura, they had mastered the go-to chakra punch, and Fairy Woman, the Tsunade Naruto had also destroyed the girlish crush on Sasuke by walking them up to 5 and trying them to oppose 3 hours. If they grudged over Sasuke when he walked by another tactic, he had to use a burying all photos of Sasuke they had and stealing precious things that Sasuke had given them, such as old kunais, lotions, Mikoto makeup, that she didn't want it anymore. And instead of him giving it to the girls so it didn't go to waste, Naruto had tortured them over and over that on a mission proposal. Relationships could bring them down. Working well as a team was fine, but caring for them as your lover or sister could bring you down if you weren't on the same level or power. They had understood the threat each other as sister teaching each other so they could be on the same power level. They were now learning medical ninjutsu, although Naruto wanted to teach them ninjutsu and genjutsu, focusing your chakra into your hands and making the fists breathe again. Naruto instructed slapping the death fish on the floor. He had gotten from the Ichiraku ramen shop. Sakura whined at the smell, while Ino just had to look at the disgusting on her face. Well, come on, Naruto said, pointing to the fish. We still have ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu, and kinjutsu, and so much more, Naruto smiled. Sakura gulped, and Ino whined, her eyes, both scared at what was coming to them. Let's train will begin. Naruto swung himself out of bed, smiling. Naruto had been living with Kakashi over 2 months. They had gotten very close. Surprisingly, Naruto hadn't told Minato, or else Minato would have stomped over there, demanding his child back. Nearly running down the step, Naruto jumped at least 3 and raced to the small kitchen. Hey Kakashi, Naruto waved. Yo Naruto, Kakashi answered, looking at him from the stove area. Naruto sat down on the table and ate his breakfast, like he did every single morning. Once he finished, he walked over to him and hugged him. Kakashi flinched at the contact, but slowly gave in. Thank you for saving me, Naruto said, his eyes watering. Don't worry, that's what big brothers do, Kakashi said, as he ruffled his hair. Now go. You're going to be late, Kakashi said, pushing him towards the door. I'm going, Naruto said as he jumped out of the door frame. Stay safe, Kakashi muttered. Naruto raced out the door, thinking about how great his life is now. He was living with his favorite mentor and was a teacher looking over the next generation. He had rare Gekenkai, surprisingly wasn't treated as a weapon every time he wore his mask. He was respected and not beaten. He could get used to this life. Just keep the mask on, no such thing will take it off. Nato groaned as she slumped against the tree. She had raided her dad's office to no avail. She hadn't found where Night Fox lives. She could have been that hard. She could just ask Night Fox came, not to her A rustling, a man with red eyes blazing, a man with shark-like figures stepping out of the bush. They both were a red cloud. Ah, Naruto Sumaki. Itachi laughed. Kisame just chuckled. What's so funny? Natsu growled angrily. Nothing, but for my investigations, you're like Night Fox, right? Itachi asked. So what? Natsu blushing furiously. Well, you might want to say your final goodbyes. Itachi laughed, pulling out a kunai. Why? Ah, Nato Uzumaki. The main cloak laughed. Be ready to say final goodbyes to Night Fox. Itachi Kisame warned, and then they poofed away. Naruto jumped through the trees, landing on the grassy training ground. Naruto stumped over Night Fox and pat his shoulders. Sensei, where do you live? Naruto asked. Naruto sighed, simply searching for the forest of chakra signatures of his other two students. But Sensei, Naruto whined, clutching her arm. Naruto shook her off and waved to Sakura, who recently had just gotten to training ground from the cold trees that made her shiver with wet drops in her pink bubblegum hair. About 2 minutes later, Sasuke had silently jumped from the freezing bush coat in freezing raining drops, with small light beams of the sunlight piercing through the edge, not to pull on fur blue gloves and red coat that went down to her knees. She stumped through the thick snow and slumped in front of the freezing tree's snow coat of the bottom of her pants. Sakura yawned as she pulled off her furry kitten cap of the pink boots with a matching jacket. Sasuke pulled up a thin blue sweater with a warm, fluffy blue scarf. Naruto sighed and closed his eyes before he heard a rustling in the bushes. Warming up, I see, Itachi laughed as he looked over to Naruto. Did tell your sensei that we were looking for him. He laughed. What a bad student, Itachi faked pouted before her body flickered next to Naruto and shoved a kunai in his back. Naruto groaned and burst into sand. Ah, sand clone, Itachi noticed, as the real Naruto jumped from the trees and aimed at Itachi's head and caught Naruto's foot and threw him on the ground before waving a sign, fire style, and blowing fire out of his mouth, aiming at Naruto. Naruto's eye widened at the fireball as he waved a hand sign. Water Dragon Jutsu. Naruto large element dragon formed of the water as Sakura, Sasuke, and Naruto gazed of the dragon which raced towards the fireball, creating a thick layer of steam. Sensei, Naruto heard as he turned around to face Kisame. Let Itachi take care of these kids and let me have some fun, Kisame smiled. As he pointed at teeth and eyes began for bloodlust. Not if I can count on it, Naruto smirked, racing towards Kisame with a kunai. Itachi, Sasuke cried as he tried to charge up a Chidori. Foolish little brother, Itachi cold said as pushed Sasuke back into the cold, bloody tree, evidence running down his face. Don't crack under pressure, Sasuke. That only leads to your death and the death of your teammates. Believe Sasuke believes. Sasuke heard in his mind the wise words Night Fox Sensei spoke so frantically when training him not to crack under pressure. Suddenly Sasuke had a plan ready to put into action, but it was shot off when he heard Sakura blood-curdling scream. Not to turn around hearing Sakura screaming. Oh no, Naruto thought, turning to Kisame and looked nothing near to try. Hey, on the bright side, that proves they're not dead yet, Kisame smirked, his long swords ready to kill. I hope not, Naruto growled, lunging for Kisame's face to punch. Kiss me, dodge.